Group G, Brazil, Cameroon, Serbia, Switzerland. Brazil, I think, finally, after I think several false dawns, this seems to be the tournament where Brazil may make a very good run to end their World Cup drought. They have got a lot of talent in this team. I think they're a team that possibly a lot of people will actively root against for Neymar not to win a World Cup. Known shitheel and Bolsonaro supporter that he is. Your main man, Thiago Silva, will be captaining Brazil. I've got a few dogs in the race myself with Anthony, and unbelievably, again, if you told me this growing up in the 90s, that Brazil's starting World Cup midfield will be the Manchester United midfield, I would tell you were insane. But the Fred Casemiro pairing has been has stood the test of time for them the last while. They seem to be very dynamic. But yeah, a lot of really good players in here. Bruno Guimaraes, who I think a lot of clubs are kicking themselves that they let Newcastle swipe him. Unbelievable. One of the best, like a transformative player for that Newcastle side. You have sickening talent out wide, the aforementioned Anthony, but you've also got Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo, the Real Madrid wingers. You've got who else have you got?
Martinelli, who's just been tearing it up for Arsenal in the Premier League so far.
You've got like different options as well. Like you've got Richarlison in there, Neymar, who we mentioned, Rafinha. There is again, it's top heavy for sure, but God, it's just a lot of talent. Like we didn't even get to Lucas Paquetá, who I think is a really good player.
As is Fabinho.
Yeah, again, maybe. Again, maybe it's one of those that if you want to tell me that like the area of concern we need to circle here is probably fullback. I'll go with that. Like you've got 39-year-old Dani Alves in the team. I feel
like he's just in there for the vibes.
Oh yeah. He's mainly in there for vibes. You've got Alex Telles, who is arguably one of the worst players I've ever seen put on a Manchester United shirt, and that covers some fucking ground. Let me tell you. It is an area of concern, I think. But I will also say at the same time that the rest of the talent going forward in this team will overwhelm the vast majority of teams they come up against here. It's a very, very good team.
Yeah, the fullbacks is the only area of weakness. I mean,
look at their fucking choices of goalkeeper as well. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like,
this is the most rounded. I think this is the most rounded squad in the whole tournament. If I had to pick one, Brazil. They just have quality oozing out of every single area of the pitch, and I think as a result of that, they are 100% in my eyes the favourites for this tournament.
Yeah, I for me in this whole build up, the two teams I'm circling as I think these are my two favourites to win are them and Argentina.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just all of those names on paper that we just you don't really need to say more than that. They have so many options,
and it's not like back in the Brazil World Cup where an injury to Neymar is absolutely disastrous for them. Like, listen to those forwards we just named. The goals will still come. Don't worry about that. You know, like maybe you could say, much like in that World Cup, if an injury happens to Thiago Silva, possible trouble.
Yeah, I do like. So I think Silva and Marquinhos would probably be the main centre half partnering, but Gleison Bremer's a very good defender as well.
Sure.
Eder Militao is a very good defender. So, I mean, Eder Militao, you could make the argument that he maybe starts ahead of Marquinhos. I mean, to me, there's no way Thiago Silva doesn't start, but that's kind of, that's kind of one where it's Militao, Marquinhos is a flip of a coin. But it's just from the leadership perspective, and just watching Thiago Silva just stroll around the pitch like a absolute Rolls Royce for the last couple of years at the age of 38 now, and still be Chelsea's best player so far this season after Reece James went down with injury. It's truly sickening that he can still be as good as he is at that age. So I think it would be a big issue for them for that reason. But they do have options if he does go down. But yeah, like this Brazil, they're the favourites. Yeah. It's the best squad, the most well-rounded squad, and hey, it's what they do. They do well in World Cups. It's been a bit of I'm going to say like a 20-year famine is like a real famine for Brazil when it comes to winning World Cups. For most nations, it's just like, oh, you've won how many? And Brazil were like, oh no, this is annoying. We haven't won it for 20 years. I'm like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, we've only got the 5.
This could be their year to take home number 6. And then theoretically, if they stick to what they did with the trophy, do they win the trophy and take the trophy, and do we get a new trophy? A new World Cup trophy after this, potentially. I don't know. Quite
interesting. Also, just a quintessential classic kit. It's just you just can't mess with it, can you? No. Love Brazil, and it would there'd be something of a like putting on an old pair of slippers to Brazil winning a World Cup that you're just like, that's the shit.
It's one of those teams where there's like there'd be no negativity for me if Brazil won the World Cup. Yeah. I just go, yeah, they should. That's what they do. They're Brazil.
Yeah, fair play, lads.
There'll be other teams in Europe, I'll be like, I don't want them to win it. Whereas Brazil, I'm just like, no, you go hog wild. You go win that.
Let's briefly mention because I think it's pretty obvious who's winning this group. But let's mention the other teams. We'll whip through them. I gotta say, based on the trajectory of his career so far, you'd almost stick a $5 on Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting for Cameroon to win the Golden Boot.
That'd be incredible.
The most surreal career in modern football.
Yeah, I don't understand it. He looked like one of the worst players I've ever seen when he was at Stoke. And his career since Stoke is just ridiculous to be at PSG.
It just goes to show you don't have to be able to do it on a wet and windy night in Stoke.
No, you couldn't. But PSG and Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
But he's played the Champions League final. He's won Liga. He's won the Bundesliga.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Insane.
And there was talk that like if United lose Ronaldo, he's one of the names that we are looking at. I'm just like, no. But there are a couple of decent and recognisable names in this Cameroon team. And they're always... You never want to rule out an African team from making a run or making things difficult. And I know one thing that you definitely have circled in your notes without having seen a single word of your notes, my friend, and that is talking about who is managing Cameroon in this tournament.
Oh, Rick-a-Pat songs. Yes. Yes, I'm so happy. We
should also, I guess, mention one of the stars of the... we mentioned the team earlier, Napoli, who are having a great run in Serie A this season. Zambo Anguissa, who looked not up to snuff at Fulham, is now proving to be one of the best midfielders in Europe this year.
Yeah, he didn't want to get it done for old TK down there at Fulham, but then De Laurentiis had a word with him, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I'm going to put some performances for him, no problem.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have on Cameroon anyway.
Yeah, I think Brian Mbeumo has been one of the guys for Brentford that's just been pretty seamless in terms of his transition from stepping up from Championship into Premier League. Maybe you could argue he needs to add more goals to his game and be a bit more consistent in front of goal, but he is and in capitals, threat every time he picks up the ball and drives at players. Like there's real quality there. Toko Akambe as well, I think probably gets into this team, and Vincent Aboubakar looked awesome in the AFCON. He was in red hot blazing form before Cameroon ended up getting eliminated from that tournament. So again, there's another side that you probably would consider quite top heavy. It's nice to see Andre Onana, the goalkeeper, back playing football again for Inter after what was a little bit of a freak ban, for taking a supplement that his wife just had in the cabinet, which is why you should never take drugs that you don't really know what's in them.
Honestly.
Self-confessed, told in on himself, but still ended up having to get banned from playing football for an extended period.
At least it wasn't because he was moving house or anything.
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh dear,
Deep cuts.
Dear, yeah, deep cuts.
Let's go to Serbia next, and let me tell you, Jack, there are worse problems to have than having to choose between Mitrovic, Tadic, Jovic, and Vlahovic as your lead forwards.
Can they play 4 up front? Yeah, I think Tadic probably, even though he's more of a centre forward these days for Ajax, I think he probably finds himself dropping in behind what I can only assume would be a front 2 of Mitrovic and Vlahovic.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Off the cuff.
Absolutely,
Jovic off the bench.
Absolutely sickening the levels Vlahovic is already at, and I'm just seeing here he was born in 2000.
Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it?
It's very annoying.
Yeah. I mean, Milinkovic-Savic is having just another imperious season.
He's finally back to the levels that he had been, like probably the last World Cup, when people were talking about 100 million plus transfer, and then he really went off the boil for a while, but he's back in a big way, isn't he?
Yeah, I think credit to Maurizio Sarri for basically resurrecting Lazio, completely directionless for a few years, just finishing kind of way below their station, and like it does with Sarri, it took time. It took him a season to get the team into a good shape, but he's really brought out the best in them, and you're just seeing those rampaging performances in the midfield again from Milinkovic-Savic. Kostic, great player in this team. At Frankfurt for a good 4 or 5 seasons, and you were just thinking, why is no one snapping this up? Well, Juventus decided that they were going to snap him up, and he's been pretty damn good for them this season, and started pretty much every single game. So
who I would be excited to see if he gets a chance is a player I'm hearing is very, very good, and that's Hellas Verona's Ivan Ilic. He's only 21 years old. He's only played 5 times at international level, but I think he's one of those guys who I think maybe he's mainly coming along for the experience of being in a World Cup squad, but everything I've heard about this guy is like he's going on to big things in Italy or possibly abroad. So he's definitely one to watch out for. And they'd be interested to see some Uros Rakic if he gets much game time in this tournament, because he was kind of the guy that when SMS was going off the boil, they were like, oh look, we've just got another one. People talked of him and being in the same mold when I believe he was at Valencia before. He's at Braga now. So I'd be interested to see if he brings the same kind of dynamism that Milinkovic-Savic can bring when he's in form, if he gets a chance. But yeah, it's a low-key very good team, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Serbia are like forever the dark horses, aren't they? Like they've forever got a team full of really solid footballers with like a few properly top level. Like the jump that we've seen this season from Mitrovic really, to me, puts him kind of in that step below that real top tier of leading men as strikers in Europe. And like at the age of 28, you wonder, does he stick around at Fulham, or does he have a good World Cup here and then maybe get a move in the summer to somewhere else? I don't know, but there is definitely enough in this Serbia team that if you were an opposition manager and you needed to get a result against them, you would be concerned, I would say.
Ever the almost runs in international tournaments, we've got Switzerland in here. And I just, off the bat, before we mention anything else about this team, yes or no, Jack, does Granit Xhaka get sent off in this World Cup?
I hope so.
It's not a World Cup if he doesn't. But you've got, like, again, some pretty decent players in here. Like Breel Mbolo is in there. Jan Sommer, just eternal in goals for them. And, they don't have too bad a backup option in Gregor Kobel. You've got Manuel Akanji. You've got Chelsea's own Denis Zakaria.
I feel really bad for Zakaria because when he was given a go, he looked pretty good.
Yeah, you've said, like, I really like him, and you said that to me recently, that every time you've seen him play is like, why is this cunt not playing every single week? And you gotta love it, guaranteed for a banger at some stage in the group stage. Yes, Xherdan Shaqiri is here representing the Chicago Fire. He will be turning out. And you just know he's got one in the locker, Jack.
Yeah, there's one in the chamber.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it seems like this generation of Swiss players is kind of on the downward slide. I wouldn't expect them to do anything massively shocking in this tournament, except, maybe make a decent account for themselves, but ultimately bow out at this stage.
Look, the chances are they might qualify from this group. They usually do get to the knockout rounds. They usually are a very kind of, primarily defensive team. So it was so much of a shock to see that insane game they had with France in the Euros last year, with the memeable content of that crazy Switzerland fan who was like super sad and then real angry, happy about a few minutes later. So I would expect them to kind of come out of this group and find a way to get that done, and then sort of like play it where it lies when they get into the last stages. But yeah, it's watching Swiss teams through the years, they're just always very well drilled, and they are incredibly consistent in their performance levels, and they're not an easy team to play against. And there is a good blend of youth and experience in this squad. There's guys in their early 30s, but there's a lot of guys in early to mid 20s as well, to kind of give you that little bit of energy. So on paper, I really like the look of Switzerland too. But they're never a team that you think about going into a tournament, and then you realise they're there, and then if your team has to play against them, you're like, oh shit, this is going to be a tricky game. So yeah, interesting to see what Switzerland can achieve here. Let's
rank them up. I think Brazil top with a bullet. I do think you would probably get it would probably be safe money that like Brazil usually have like an early wobble. So they might come out of this group with 7 points. They might get like a draw against a Serbia or a Switzerland, but then that draw is like the last wobble on before they go on an incredible run. But Brazil top of this group anyway. I'm going to say Serbia second.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I think you look at that attacking power they've got, and I think like they're overwhelming Cameroon for sure. And I think even a staunch Switzerland defense, I think are going to have a very hard time with those options. So bring on Mitro's round of 16, I say.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it would be Switzerland for me, but I'll let you go with Serbia here.
Okay, and then we'll go Switzerland third, Cameroon bringing up the rear.